Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight to our student seminar. We're going to be talking about navigating through course registration. This is really going to be just a really simple process. We're going to start with giving our information, and then we're going to have questions near the end, but we're going to start with introductions.
So I do not believe Emma is joining us tonight, so I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Brett Cohen. I am a current MSW student. I'm also pursuing a second master's in higher education. So I will be here for 5 semesters total, and I'm in my third out of 5. So I'm very excited to be talking to all of you tonight. I'm originally from Chicago, and I have a field placement in the Office of Student Conflict Resolution.
Dahlia is also not joining us tonight. She's at field, so I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Kohler Olszewski. I'm a 12-month advanced standing student in the School of Social Work, which means I think I have, as of today, 31 days left in the program. So I'm very excited about that. I am in the global pathway. I finished my field placement just at the end or in the middle of June. I was at a school in Dearborn, and yeah.
Hi, my name's Kaylee. I apologize in advance. I have hiccups, but I am on the IP pathway as well. I'm in the IP pathway, a 12-month advanced standing student, so I'll be graduating next month with Kohler. I also have an internship with Michigan Medicine, so yeah.
So just to go over the agenda for this slideshow today, the slideshow will have some just overview information, but then of course we'll leave time at the end for questions. If you've joined us for these webinars in the past, this one will have a little bit more content just because by the nature of the topic of trying to navigate course registration, there are more technical elements to it. So we'll go over the registration dates, course planning worksheet demo, walk you through that. We'll introduce you, if you haven't explored it before, to the course catalog, talk to you about the Intro to Social Work course, that's Social Work 590, and then also walk through a demo of registering for courses before finally opening it up for questions. So when you are thinking about your registration date, every student does have a specified date and time. You will be getting emails about that, but if you haven't yet accessed Wolverine Access, you can also find that information there. So when we walk through the demo, you'll be able to see an understanding of where that information will be. In order to be able to register, it's very important that you have completed the technical standards form in order to get that registration appointment. So again, that is in Wolverine Access. There is a student service center, and then the technical standard form will pop up for you that you'll need to complete in order to be registering as a student here. So now I'm gonna pull up the course planning worksheet demo. I will be the navigator of it, but Kohler or Kaylee, if you want to talk us through the process, we could do that as well.
Yeah, I'll hop in and I'll just kind of do the talking, um, and we'll go from there. So this is the course planning worksheet. So that is the hyperlink to get you right there. You can just look up like the University of Michigan School of Social Work course planning worksheet. And I just want to additionally say that you will also be receiving an email as a follow-up to this, and it is linked right in that email as well. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. If everyone's all right with it, I'm just going to use myself as an example of how to find like my registration or my course planning sheet, and so we'll go from there. So the first step is looking at your admission term. It's really important to recognize that that is the term that you're being admitted. So for me, I was admitted in fall of 2022. It is going to look different for everyone. That is the term that you're starting on. So the term that you're actually going to be starting classes, that's the one that you're going to want to click. Next, you're going to go to curriculum schedule. So when you click on that, you're going to be looking at, there's a plethora of them. For myself, I'm the advanced standing, but you can see 16-month, 20-month, etc. I am not in any special programs, but if you did click special programs, that would also be giving you a rundown of a specific classes that you would need to take for that. And then lastly, we're going to do pathway. And pathway, it has all of the pathway options. Just click the one that is applicable to you. For me, it's global. And once you click that, you just click create the course planning worksheet and it populates. So they are going to look, different for everyone. Of course, this one is mine. And it'll give you a breakdown of your first fall semester, your first winter semester. And then, of course, as you scroll down, it'll be the spring summer one. I was only here for 3 terms. If you're here for longer than that, you'll have 4. And this is really just kind of guidelines. So this is not necessarily what you need to follow, but if you do follow it, you're gonna graduate, on time. It's a really good kind of starting point for selecting classes. It also gives you, credit hour amounts in the corner. Those can fluctuate based on how many credits you are interested in taking. So yeah, that's really just a brief walkthrough. Kaylee and Brett, do you have anything else to add before we move on?
The other thing that I'll add is just looking at the worksheet key up here. So when you see these checkboxes with an X through them, those will be a required course for everyone, regardless of what pathway you're in. And then, or I'm sorry, it is about what pathway you're in as well. You'll see it's differentiated between the essentials for everyone, the pathway requirement, as well as field requirements that are all required. There's often times where you might be able to choose between a type of section or a course. An example of this is in interpersonal practice. There's oftentimes courses that are specifically in line with children and transitional youth versus courses in line with adults. So you'd be able to choose one or the other there. And then if you see this open circle, it means that that's how much elective credit hours you have that semester. And you can fill that with either other courses at the School of Social Work or other courses that are level 500 and above throughout the university. But when you're signing up for those ones, they're considered cognates. So you do just need to make sure that you talk to the registrar's office and get the approval for that to be used towards your social work degree. It shouldn't ever usually be a problem as long as you're in that 500 level or above, but some courses might need an additional exception. Okay, any other notes on the course planning worksheet before we go back to the slides? And this will stay up, so if we have further questions about it later, we can always come back. And so here's just another sample. This one is if you are an interpersonal practice pathway student on the 16-month track, you can see, again, here's how it might look a little different for your first fall term. One thing as somebody who came in on the 16-month track that I really appreciated is my first fall term was all laid out for me. So you can see that each of these classes have that checkbox with an X through it, indicating that they are a required course. So I just knew I was going to sign up for all these courses. The flexibility lied in what specific sections I was going to sign up for. So for all the required courses, the university definitely does make sure that we are giving enough section options to accommodate all the students who need to enroll in it. And a lot of them do have the same time frame. So for example, social work 505, there was like 10 different sections all happening Monday from 9 a.m. to 12 or to noon. So I knew I was going to be taking that class during that time frame, but I did still get to look through each individual section and kind of look at who was going to be teaching it and determine which professors I wanted to take or stuff from there. But if I wanted to not take it from 9 to noon, I was able to try to see if there were alternative time slots for it and prioritize that as well. And so this is where the course catalog comes in, to talk about that a little bit more. So I'll pull up the course catalog, and again, Kohler or Kaylee, if you want. Oop, maybe that link didn't quite have it. So I'll pull it up separately and put a link in the chat.
Before we move forward, I do see that someone just put a question in the chat, so I want to kind of bring that to light quickly. So it says, what would course planning be like for sociology plus social work plus community change plus the specific scholars program 12-month track? They don't see that option there, and so I'm going to first ask a clarifying question. Are you, Kylie, are you a why can't I do that? Is that a dual degree option? Sorry, I just want to clarify that quick.
I'm not really sure what you mean by dual degree. I don't think so. No, it's not dual degree. It's just it never shows up, and I don't know if that's considered advanced standing, but it just doesn't show up in the course catalog at all.
Okay. All right. I want to just turn this over to Brett and Kaylee. Do you guys have any idea of that? What that might look like then?
Sorry, I'm going to read it from the chat really quick because I was doing stuff in the background. Yeah, so the 12-month track would definitely be either the advanced standing or a master's track. So you could start there.
Okay, that clarifies because I thought I read that advanced standing wasn't the same thing, so I like couldn't find it on the course catalog, but I appreciate that because they do have the advanced standing option.
Okay. So now that the course catalog, I have it pulled up and I've put it into the chat so you can follow along at home. Kaylee or Kohler, do you want to talk us through the course catalog and I'll just click around for you?
Yeah, so if we want to, should we start with spring, summer, or should we go to fall?
We can go to fall.
Okay, we'll go to fall. So you just pick your one term that you can pick is the fall 2023, and you just click update list. If you scroll down, you'll see the entirety of the fall catalog, and that's required, electives, all that jazz. And they'll give you who's teaching it, the topics, the times, if it's in person or if it's online, if they don't know if it's in person or online yet, because sometimes that happens. But that's what that basically is. But if you scroll back up to the top, there is an option where you can associate it with pathway, or I thought there was an option to do something else. But if you want to do interpersonal practice, just because I know that one. And then there used to be something that would help you click a time of day. Maybe that's not there anymore. But so you can continue scrolling down, and then it'll just have your interpersonal practice courses and anything in that one, along with electives for interpersonal practice. But you should know that you don't just have to take the IP electives if you are doing the IP pathway. You can take a community change elective, the global pathways elective, whatever you want to do. I think it's a great idea to take multiple pathways just because you're getting the degree. It's gonna be the same at the end, but you'll be able to kind of get that well-rounded experience with your education. Oh, there's a time.
Here's there was an expandable search options.
So yeah, you can click any times that you want. If you wanted, say like a 2:30 p.m. class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe they have those. But if you want to be real specific with it, you can just search it up and it'll pop populate if it does have any. No,
No,
No.
not 2:30 Tuesdays and Thursdays, sadly.
but I believe you can click on multiple ones, so you can try and get as close to what your preferred schedule will look like. I know I definitely use this to try and lay out what I wanted to do and like lay out a plan. What did I do? I just took out a piece of paper, wrote down all the classes I wanted, and then tried to get them all aligned in a week to see what I could do. So yeah, that's basically the course catalog for you.
Mhm. A few other things I wanted to point out. So obviously when you saw without us doing any filtering, it does give you a lot of options, and you may have noticed some of those options were like showing undergrad courses. So let me just go back to the front to the first page. So when you see, oops, we'll go back to fall. Seeing social work 200, right? So anything again that's below a 500 level would be an undergrad course. So you wouldn't go to that. So if you're just wanting to see specifically the course that you're going to be taking, so social work 505 is one that we know majority of students are going to take in that first fall semester. So you can update the list just to search for social work 505 and then look across the board at what are the different options there. And then all these other buttons too. So if you wanted to view a course description, this information is listed here. This will be the same information for each of the different sections for social work 505. But then as you go down, it has the specifics about that section there. You can also click on the instructor, and then there's going to be a brief bio on the instructors, maybe some information about their CVs or education, as well as a lot of information about past courses they've taught too, is I think super helpful. So sometimes you can use that if you know you really like a professor, you can see what courses do they usually teach. And so it'll show what they're currently teaching and what they've taught in the past. So you can kind of gauge what they might be teaching in the future, stuff like that. And then the only other thing that I wanted to point out is you can use this as like, let's favorite this class, so that now when you go over to print favorites, you'll see specifically which ones you're referencing and thinking about, so that it can start to help you organize what you might want to put into your schedule. But that also goes into, once you get into Wolverine Access, then you can do a backpacking. So we'll point that out in a little bit. But I'm gonna pause. Kohler, Kaylee, is there anything else that we missed for course catalogs, or were there questions in the chat?
So I did see quite a few questions in the chat, and so I thought we'd just take a quick chance to answer them quickly. So have any of us taken hybrid courses, and what was the experience like with that?
Hybrid meaning some in person, some online?
So I'll just jump in with my question here. One of the classes is listed as a hybrid instruction mode. So there's like in person, there's online, and then hybrid. So I'm assuming hybrid means some of it's in person and some of it is online. So just wondering if anyone's done that and what that was like.
Yeah, so if it's listed as hybrid format, then that's what it is referring to, is that sometimes you'll meet online, sometimes you'll meet in person, and that's like a pre-planned process, whereas obviously sometimes life just happens, or maybe there's, a resurgence of COVID, and so we switch to online. But for hybrid classes, I've taken those in the past, and I feel like they work pretty seamlessly. I appreciate kind of that flexibility. I am, as I'm sure we all are, very used to Zoom at this point. So I like to be able to have a little bit of switching it up. And the instructors who I've had who have taught over Zoom are really well versed in it as well, and can make it pretty seamless between when they're teaching in person versus online. And they're very intentional about what sort of activities they would leave for online versus what they save for in person.
Thank you.
Mhm.
there was another question asking about, is there any website that like you can see professor reviews? So I'll hop in on this one, and I will say that there is, of course, like the tried and true rate my professor, but I will say that it's not always the most up to date, and it really just kind of depends. My recommendations is kind of what Brett has already explained. First of all, kind of going through and looking at the professor. Yeah, you can click Dr. Kiritan because she's fabulous. First of all, if anybody is interested, please take a class with Dr. Kiritan. Shameless plug, she's fabulous. So look at their bio, look at the courses that they've taught. And then, if you do have further questions about that, I would want to like recommend, if you have people that you're connected with in the program already, reach out to them and ask if they've had this professor and ask what their opinions are. But please know that that's like solely based on opinion. Then you can also, if you're really worried or really curious, you could also reach out to the professor and talk to them. But recognizing that they are professors and they're busy, give them some grace. I will say the first two professors on this right here, Terry Friedline and Ashley Kiritan, I have taken both of them. They are fabulous. Both are really, really willing to work with the students. Both lead very like organized and well laid out discussions in class and have wonderful class activities. But again, that's just my opinion. So yeah. And then there's one other question, and I see Kaylee has already kind of answered it. So Kaylee, if you'd like, do you want to answer it out loud for everyone?
Yeah, so this question was saying that sometimes courses fill up before everyone who needs them can register. Is this a frequent problem? Is there anything we can do to ensure that we're able to get into the classes that are required? So this honestly happens a lot. I personally got it happened. I think I had to petition for 4 courses this semester, but I didn't get denied any of them. I petitioned for all of them, told them my reasoning, and they were like, okay. They always have seats available in every class for a petition for that reason. So if it's required for your graduation, if it's something you need that semester, they will get you into that class no matter what. So I definitely just say petition and you'll probably get in. I don't think it's as frequent in the fall and the winter as it is in the spring and the summer. I think they just kind of get backed up with that and something happens. But the fall, you shouldn't have to worry about too much.
Okay. I stopped sharing my screen for that brief moment so that I could log into Wolverine Access because we're going up to that point in a minute here. But first, just a quick little note about Social Work 590. So as I mentioned, Social Work 590 is sort of an intro to social work course. Your first class session actually is held during orientation week or seed week if you started to receive those emails. So make sure to attend that. It is going to just be a 1 credit hour course, and it's meant to help you understand how to navigate the school, the program, what resources you need. It also is a great class to start learning about how do I approach field placement, whether you're already in field or you're just going to be applying in the fall semester. They'll answer all the questions there. Oh, and then a specific definition here. So for the student who was talking about CBI, this is a good note for you. There will be specific sections that some students need to sign up for. So it looks like for this upcoming fall, that would be section 005. So you will want to make sure that you're registered for that one. And that note is usually included both in the course catalog and on Wolverine Access. So if you are somebody not in those special programs, you'll still be able to see and know like, oh, not the section for me, got it. I'll sign up for a different one. Yeah. Moving on to the process of registering for courses. I will drive and talk through this one because it'll be in my personal backpack. But basically, to start us off, this is Wolverine Access. You can find it by just typing in wolverineaccess.umich.edu, or I will put that link in the chat. but you will have to sign in first. So if you have not yet made a University of Michigan ID and password, that is your first step. And then here's where you would come once you have that. And here is where a plethora of stuff is located for both students, faculty, staff, parents, as well as even alumni. So we're going to focus on the student section. And in the student section, again, there's a bunch of hyperlinks. Some take you directly to places as opposed to going through the Student Business Center, but we're going to start by just going through the student business. And then when this pulls up, as I mentioned earlier, you know, if you still haven't done sign that standards technical form, you would go into the Student Center to do that. When you're ready to pay tuition, you can find that either in campus finances. You can also look up your financial aid information. So there's some places in here that are a little bit of an overlap. So I definitely encourage you to, if you haven't looked around, definitely look around. This probably won't show up for you. This is a little fun fact. I applied here for undergrad. So, you know, it keeps records of you. So it'll have specific things for specific people. But for the purposes of today, we are going to click on the class search / browse catalog button. So the way that it works here at the University of Michigan is you go through a two-step process when signing up for classes. The first thing is you would find the class and you would add it to what's called your backpack, and then you can keep it in your backpack for however long you want. You can enter things into your backpack as soon as the course catalog is open, and even if it's before your registration time has been allotted. So what I mean by that is as soon as we know what courses are going to be offered in the upcoming semester, you can come into Wolverine Access and you can start piecing together, like, what would it look like to take social work 505 and 506 on the same day? What sections are offered in that way? How can I start arranging it? What would my class schedule look like? So you can start doing the little search for all of those. And then once it's in your backpack, it'll just stay there. And then when your time slot opens where you can register, you would click on your backpack and say, register for these classes. And as long as none of them are full, then you can just go straight into all the classes. If any of them are full, then you would have to backtrack a little bit and find out what other sections are still available. So it sounds a little bit confusing when I just read it like that. So we're going to walk through some examples. When you just see this page, which is the class search page, you would start by selecting your subject. You can type in the code, which is just SW, so pretty easy to remember. And then as you click away, it'll tell you, yep, social work. You can either put in a specific course number. So as I've been using as an example, if we wanted to say 505, we could do that here. Or if you just want to see all of the social work courses offered next semester, you can specify a level. As I've been saying earlier, 500 and above are the classes that you want to be looking at. This option for show open classes only can be really helpful because you don't want to waste your time necessarily with classes that are already at capacity. But if you did want to see those, perhaps you're petitioning for a class and you just need to know the code about it, then you could uncheck that mark. And then independent study classes, you shouldn't have to worry about in your first semester. If you are going into an advanced field placement, then that would be applicable. So you can toggle that button if you want. And we did talk a little bit about those instructional modes. So if you have preferences, you can click on it. But if you don't have any preferences, you can leave it blank and just start your search. So it'll take a second to populate. And here we go. So right now it shows any class 500 level and above that is open for this upcoming fall for the code of social work. And when you're looking through, it gives the same information we saw in the course catalog, just in a different format. So let's look specifically at social work 505, the favorite example that I've been giving. Just like in the course catalog, we see Terry Friedline, we see Ashley Curitin, as well as all the other instructors. We see the meeting date and time. with the day and time over here, and as well as the range of when it's meeting for, how many credit hours it is. The instructional mode is still listed here, and we'll specify if it's in person, at distance, or hybrid. And then over here is where you'll see how many available seats are still left. And you can also see if seats are reserved for certain people. So like how we said for social work 590, there's at least one section that's reserved for students who are in a specific program. So you all qualify as social work graduate standing. The 18 verse 19 verse 20, I'm not sure, but that looks like it's just referring to how many available seats are left. So no need to worry about those numbers. You can just find those here. As well as this status, there should be a key at top, shows what's open, what's closed, and what is offering waitlist. So anyway, we were saying before, Terry's great, so we're going to sign up for Terry's section of 505. The way that we do that, as I was explaining earlier, you would first have to add it to your backpack. So because I selected it, I'm now going into my add it to the backpack enrollment preferences. I just look at it and I say, yep, this looks good. And then I click next. And so now it has been added to my backpack, as we can see here. When I feel like my backpack is all set the way that I want it, or maybe I just want to check in at my backpack, I can go to that mode up here by clicking on backpack. It will show you all the terms that you have a backpack for. I mentioned at the start of the call, I am in both the School of Social Work and the higher education program is under Rackham. So that's why I have these separate options. You most likely will just see social work options and then each term that you've had a backpack for that's currently applicable. So for the purposes of this example, I'm pretty sure it went into my fall 2023 social work backpack. Possible that it went into my Rackham one. Good, here it is. Okay. So this backpack, as you saw, I selected the class and I added it here. If I ever wanted to just go and have it go straight into my backpack, I could enter the course number. So course number referring to that 5-digit code here, which is listed on the course catalog. So if you find it there and just want to type it in, you can do it that way, or you can do another class search over here. Down at the bottom of your backpack shows which classes you've already signed up for. So for anyone who wanted a sneak peek at my fall semester, here are some of the classes I'm taking. But for you all, that would be empty for now, but you could still look at like, you know, all of the things that are in your backpack here. You can move things around. Because this is just your backpack, you can have things that would technically overlap. So if you wanted to put multiple different social work 505 options on here, you can do that. When you're ready to officially register for the class, that's when you would click on proceed to step 2 of 3. I believe we have to select it first. So yeah, you would select which ones you want, and then you would say proceed to step 2 of 3. And this is where you would determine if everything looks good, and then you would say finish registering. For the purposes of this example, I will not be registering for it, but you would just click that and then confirm it, and then you'd be on the list. And then once it is on the list, you would see it down here, which would show your class schedule. You can also click on my class schedule, which shows only the ones that you're currently enrolled in. So you would confirm it over here. And then if you wanted to see it in a calendar view, which I always think is super helpful, you could do that as well. And this calendar view shows some of the higher ed courses I also am already signed up for. So again, you get a sneak peek of what's going on in Brett's life. That was a really quick run through. There is a very handy video on the website, as well as probably has been emailed to you, that does the same exact walkthrough, probably more eloquently than I just did it. But I am going to pause now for any questions.
Brett, before we hop into questions, and this one actually does, I guess, tie into a question, would you be willing to unshare your screen and I'm going to hop in and show
Yes.
Atlas, which is probably one of my favorite tools ever. So There was a question in the chat that was asking about Atlas and about like, are you still able to use it if you're in an MSW program? And the answer is yes. So Atlas is just an easy way to kind of look at your courses. So I was playing around just to kind of show you an idea of what it would look like. So the really nice thing about Atlas is you can type in any courses. So I'm just giving like a quick rundown of I'm picking random classes that I took my first semester. And so as you can see, like Atlas, when I click that, it's going to first select the section 1. And unfortunately, there is only one section of this class. So I prefer Atlas because it does show like the conflict right away on your schedule. And for people who are more visual, this is a great tool to kind of look at what your weekly schedule is going to look like. So I removed that other class just so I could be like, oh, I want to take this one. And this just is a really good way of, again, visually showing you. And then while I think I had difficulties with it the time I used it, you do have the option to click send to backpack, and it should automatically send the courses that you have here to your backpack to then just go to that processing step of, doing the final steps of registration, like Brett had explained. Kaylee, I know that you said you were also you also use this. So do you have anything else to add?
In the sections, I believe it'll let you view which instructor it is, because that was a big thing for me, is seeing which instructors there were. Yeah, it shows you all the sections that are there, which is what I liked. I liked that whole, okay, I can just click on like these different 3 sections and see which one I liked better in my schedule, or click specific people because maybe I didn't want the same professor 2 semesters in a row. So I did appreciate that, but that's it.
Yeah, stop sharing. All right, there were some questions in the chat, and so we're gonna kind of tackle those quickly. So it looks like there's one about saying that I went to undergrad or at the University of Michigan for undergrad as well. Can I still use Atlas? Yes, the answer is yes. Is registration typically stressful for you all? Or is it easier than this or than it seems? Similar to what Kaylee said, personally, I found it easy, but I also have just been through so many course registrations by this point. Like I'm just kind of used to it, but I know that can be stressful when you get a red X that says that you didn't get into the class, but I'm just gonna say, like, don't panic. It's gonna be all right. You can petition to get into it, or talking with like technical advising or your academic advisor. They can help kind of guide you into maybe taking that class another semester if it's offered. So yeah.
I'm gonna put the screen back up, Kohler, because the next set of slides kind of talk specifically about that process.
Perfect. There is. Go ahead.
So yeah, so as Kohler was mentioning, if you run into an issue where a class is already closed or you need specific department consent required, that's when you would access the course enrollment petition form. And so here are, just some of those reasons why you might be accessing this form. But just to walk through some tips on completing the enrollment petition form, you'll definitely want to be specific. Provide all details necessary to explain why you must be considered for this specific course and specific section. And be willing to be flexible, though. Sometimes, again, there are options for different sections all at the same time. So like if you were doing a petition just because of a preference of professor, that might not be as applicable if there is another class, that same course offered at the same time, just with a different professor, if that makes sense. But it still include your narrative. Know that we do not give preference based on preferred instructors. So exactly what I was just saying, if there are spots available, you might be allowed to go into a closed course, but otherwise, the section that just matches your time and your schedule is more of the priority. And course instructors do not have authorization themselves to grant permission for students. So please do not go emailing them to ask for their permission. So some of the instructors we've been highlighting, if all of you are going to go and try to be in their classes, great. But if you find that their class is closed, please don't start emailing them, because then they'll be mad at us, because then they're getting emails that they can't actually do anything with. There's also an exemption request form. So this is a good segue into talking about those intro courses that many of you will probably be taking in the fall. Sometimes if you have coursework completed in the past 6 years with a grade level B or better, you might be up for an exemption. So for those intro courses listed down here, they are typically the ones where students would use an exemption request form to explain, I took a class that is very similar to this in the past, within the past 6 years, and received a grade level of B or better. Do I have to still take this? Using an exemption does not reduce the total number of credit hour requirements to complete your degree, which for a 16 or 20-month student would be 60 credit hours. I believe for advanced standing is 45. You would still need to meet that requirement, but you could replace the foundation course with an elective course instead. A great example of this, I don't know exactly which code it is, but in your intro courses, there is a research course. So I myself didn't necessarily do an exemption, but I did just have a replacement course where I had to take a research course for my higher ed program as well. So I used it to kind of double dip between the two programs. That's one that students will often do. Or if you have any other overlap with some of the other ones where you're thinking, I feel like I've already taken this, then yeah, definitely no harm in filling out the exemption request and seeing if you can replace that class with a different one. And then I feel like we've touched on electives already, but here's just a nice summary that they can be additional courses in your pathway. You can use them to work towards a secondary pathway. You can get a specialization in school social work. You can take courses in different pathways. There's a ton of mini courses offered, which are 1 credit hour courses. Typically they meet on weekends, kind of like an intensive workshop. And there's some really good options there. So you can use electives that way. You can start planning your own independent studies, or again, you can go into and search through courses outside of the school. Or if you want to use elective hours just to get additional field instruction, you can do that. And then substitutions is what I was talking about when I took the research class that worked for both. Again, student-initiated process. So this explains the details around it that I've already kind of gone over. And yes, I feel like this was covered. So I just want to make sure that we have enough time for any additional questions, because I see the chat starting to fill up. But here's some more information. And again, you will receive these slides so you can go through and contact these individuals or look at the more information. And yeah, now let's just open it for questions.
All right, we're going to kind of backtrack. I just want to figure out which questions we haven't answered. Brett, I do see that you answered one, but I'm going to ask it just out loud for everyone. So someone put, I'm not sure if anyone here will know the answer, but can I use the same Wolverine Access login if you used to go to undergrad here, or do you have to set a new one up for the new degree? And Brett, I saw that you did answer that, but I'll let you hop in and explain that. I didn't go to undergrad here.
Yeah, no, again, it should be the same. I didn't go to undergrad here either, but as I explained with my Wolverine Access, I applied here for undergrad, and my application information was still the same. So it kind of just keeps it logged in there. If you run into any problems with that, you can contact the registrar's office.
All right, next question. Do you recommend putting multiple sections of each course in your backpack in case the classes get filled? I'll hop in and say this one because I'm kind of a crazy planner sometimes when it comes to course registration. So typically what I will do is I will actually create 1 or 2 schedules of the classes I need to take just at different times. In case one of them I do see fills up, then I can just kind of fall back onto that other schedule. If you feel comfortable putting multiple into your backpack, you can, but I also think that the feature is going to say that you've already like registered, or like you already have a course for that course in your backpack. So it might just be as simple as you just switching the section. So yeah. Next question. When do you get assigned an academic advisor? Wolverine doesn't show one for me yet. And Kaylee, I think you hopped in and answered that one.
Yeah, so I believe you get them at orientation, but I think my advisor emailed me like a week or 2 before that just to like introduce himself. But you'll meet them at orientation, you'll have a little chat, like question answer type dealio. But yeah, so you should get them at orientation for sure, because you'll be able to have a meeting with them.
Yeah, and then I'm going to add in what I put into the chat as well. So for this first semester, after you've registered for courses, OSS staff is actually going to look at them and check your like courses this first semester for you. And so they'll kind of quote unquote advise you before you come into the program. Just to give you an example, I was an advanced standing student. I chose to take 609, but Callie was wonderful and they messaged me and they sent me an email and they're like, you don't need to take 609, don't take it. And so I just chose a different class. But then after that, you can reach out to technical advising, which is a wonderful resource. So all of the technical advisors take a shift where they're just doing advising for that day. So if you send them an email, usually I think it's like a 48-hour grace period, but they will respond with your advising question. I do recommend, if you have like some kind of plan written up, or if you have very specific questions, the more information you give them, the better they can answer your question. And they can always set up an appointment with you as well. Next question, do you know if there's an online program orientation, or do you know if the online program orientation will be online or in person? I wrote that I wasn't sure, but I think it's online. If you have questions, reach out to OSS and they will happily probably provide that information for you. All right. Next one. Have any of you gone through the process of getting a course exempt? Any suggestions on knowing whether you should pursue that?
I've gone through the process of, as I mentioned earlier, of getting a substitution, not necessarily an exemption, but it is a similar form and process. And I would say, if you are really feeling like this would just be repeated information, then definitely, own that and start the process. It never hurts to try and to ask. And while answering that question, I am going to tie in an additional question, talking about, whether or not you should email professors about exemptions. I think the main person who you'll want to work with is the registrar's office. So at the end of the day, the registrar's office is the one who is going to run your degree audit and make sure that you met all of your requirements to receive an MSW degree, and have met the requirements as stated by the Council for Social Work Education. So they're the ones who will have the best information for you on if an exemption would be accepted or not. A lot of times it will be a really quick and easy, like, yep or no. I've dealt with that on the school of education side, where I tried to do the substitution the reverse way, and they were like, well, at School of Ed, the substitution or the research class is 3 credit hours. At School of Social Work, it's 1 credit hour. So they would not have accepted it, and they were able to tell that really quickly. So if you're thinking, okay, I might want to do an exemption, the process goes through the registrar's office anyway. If you want a second opinion, you can reach out to them. Hopefully that answered both questions.
Do we have any questions? Any other questions to answer? You can either throw them in the chat, unmute and ask, or, hop in. I did want to add on the petition part of it, a little insider tip that I was told when I got here was that if you are looking to do a petition, sometimes it isn't a bad idea to reach out to the professor that you're hoping to petition into their class. That is not necessary by any means, and sometimes it's more beneficial to just, if it's before the class has started, to just switch in or petition. But I know I did that with one professor, just asked if if they had available seats that they could, that they could allow another student in, or comfortably have another student. And they were like, yeah. And so then I did the petition process, and it was easy, but the professor doesn't get to make that decision. Just typically letting the professor know in ahead always kind of helps. Any other questions?
Oh, so the follow-up, yes, so should we email the registrar for petitions as well? Yes, I believe all those forms are run through their office. So right, whenever you have questions about that. Thanks for being flexible with our hybrid answering strategy. There was a question, I'm not sure, Kohler, if you talked about it too, but for anybody who is wondering if there's a formal registration process for seat orientation, nope, you just come on the first day. And I put a link into the chat, but I'll make it so that it goes to everyone and not just a answer to that specific question. So that's the link with more information on seat orientation for this upcoming year. They have a tentative schedule in there, but basically it will start on August 22nd, which is a Tuesday, unless you are an international student, then you would start on August 21st. And if you have any issues of maybe you're not moving in that early, just reach out to the Office of Student Services, and it'll be a-okay. I had to miss one of the days and it's all good. So you're able to make some flexibility.
So
yeah, so go ahead, Kohler. I think we're both gonna read it.
yeah, so what might some of the differences among professors within the same required course? What are some of the differences? What could they be? And Brett, do you want to hop in and answer, or Kaylee?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, different teaching styles. That's a given, kind of across the board. Even if they're given the exact same content to teach, you will still get different styles and personalities sprinkled in there. So that's always something that you can start looking out for. If you see that you already know a professor and you know that you like their teaching style, great, go in that direction. Another thing is, for some of the required courses, they do offer a little bit of flexibility for professors to add their individual spin on it. So what I mean by that is, for social work 505, for example, that's the social justice course. Social justice is such a large umbrella that professors can put it into a lens of their own. So when I took it, it was through a lens of the social determinants of health, which was something I was really interested in. So I was happy to be taking it there. But I heard from my peers that they were covering other topics as well. So hopefully that answers the question. For the most part, though, there are the same core concepts that you will always be going over. So to provide some peace of mind, you still will be getting the same curriculum no matter who you go through. It's more just additional pieces that you can gain out of it.
I'll hop in and also add that, kind of, Brett, you've already alluded to this, but also with professors, even if it is like what we would consider like I don't want to call it a cookie cutter curriculum, but like a set curriculum, sometimes professors are going to emphasize different things more than they will just other topics. So sometimes if a professor's more passionate about like a specific section of that curriculum, you might spend more time on it, or they might go into more detail about it. And yeah, so and kind of going off of Brett's answer previously, when I took 605, or not 605, sorry, 505, mine really looked at the like focused on economic inequality and looking at like the history of Black banking, or you know, money disparities within people of color. So I mean, they can vary over a wide spectrum, is kind of what I'm saying. But yeah. Do we have any other questions?
I'm just going to jump in and ask a question that may be more efficient than typing, and I know we're almost at time. So I'm curious in terms of, so I'm a part-time student, and considering electives, has your experience been that they're offered primarily during the same time, during the same semester? Do they shift? I know often the best way is to look at the past year to reference when they've been offered. In your experience, do folks usually stick to those same schedules with their electives, or is that a whole nother thing?
I mean, I'll hop in and say that looking at the past years is probably the best, and that typically professors are going to try to teach similar electives during similar semesters. But then I also know that there are some options where, like, I'll give a very specific example of like Debbie Madison, who's a wonderful professor. I took social work and spirituality with her. So she offers one 3-credit course of social work and spirituality. I took it during my winter semester, but then the other 2 semesters, so fall and then spring, summer, she offers it as a 1-credit elective. So there are some times where like a professor will get one 3-credit section, and then we'll also offer it as a mini course or as a micro course. But typically, from what I've seen, there is correlation with electives, but because they're electives, they're not necessarily taught every academic year either. It just kind of depends on the professor and like the prevalence of like desire for that course. But otherwise, they're usually on track and pretty organized.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I know that this was more of a technical session, so if you do have follow-up questions, definitely feel free to reach out. We are putting our emails in the chat. So as you're going through the process and you're like, wait, what the heck did they say? I couldn't follow any of that. Feel free to email us. You'll also get a copy of the slide deck, and there's some really helpful links throughout that slide deck.
Yeah, and I'll hop in and say, because I'm the one who's going to be setting up the follow-up email. So within our follow-up email, you're going to get a copy of the slide deck, a copy of this recording. You'll also have the link directly to that course planning worksheet. And then additionally, just because I really liked how it worked out last session, there's also going to be a document with all of the links that were shared in the chat, so that they're just quicker to access, so you don't have to try to remember them. So that you'll get all of that in the email. But thank you all so much for coming.